All right. So, on the heels of Trump basically winning his defamation case against ABC News, he is now threatening to file lawsuits against more media, which should surprise absolutely nobody. So yeah, because all Donald Trump knows is bullying tactics. But let's get to the article. Donald Trump, following ABC's settlement, says he'll file more lawsuits against media, including Iowa pollster. We have to straighten out the press. Translation, we need to have the press only say good things about me. Because that's all he cares about. Because his problem with ABC News, and specifically George Stephanopoulos, was that he mentioned he was found guilty of rape, which E. Jean Carroll and the judge both say, yeah, he was. But because it was phrased differently in the statute, somehow that makes it better. So he should have said sexual assault instead of rape, as if that would make him sound like a decent guy, because it was just assault as opposed to rape. Okay. But anyway, instead of going to court, ABC News decided to settle out of court. And they are basically giving him $15 million to start a presidential library, after his presidency ends. Because this is how Trump manages to not become a pauper, even after all the crap he's been through, because he gets other people to pay for him. And so, how can he lose money, right? Anyway, let's get right to the article. Why isn't it moving? Donald Trump vowed to file additional lawsuits against media outlets and media figures just days after he settled his lawsuit against ABC, in which the network agreed to contribute $15 million to his presidential foundation and library. We have to straighten out our press. Our press is very corrupt, almost as corrupt as our elections, Trump told reporters today in a press conference. Really, our elections are corrupt, so you're admitting that you stole the 2024 election, right? Because if it was corrupt, then all the winners actually weren't winners. So instead of Republicans holding majorities in every branch of government, it should be Democrats, right? Anyway, Trump suggested that he would file a lawsuit against Ann Seltzer and the Des Moines Register, which published her poll just days before the election that showed Kamala Harris with a 3 percentage point lead in the state. As it turned out, Trump won the state by more than 13 percentage points. Okay, now I could understand if Kamala Harris won. That at least would prove the poll right. But the poll wasn't even proven right. So Trump really doesn't have a case here. So I really hope the Des Moines Register, if he does file a lawsuit, I hope the Des Moines Register doesn't cave. Because it's one thing to claim that a poll influenced an election by, getting Trump supporters so bummed out that they didn't vote, or whatever his reasoning is. But that didn't happen. She said Kamala Harris was going to win by a narrow margin. And Donald Trump won by a big margin. So, where's the corruption here? It would be corruption if he won the state, but the state was called for Harris. But that's not what happened, so I'm not sure what he's claiming here. Trump claimed that the poll was fraud and election interference. We'll probably be filing a major lawsuit against them today or tomorrow, he said. Okay. Now, let's pretend that that's what polls are, that they're fraud, they're election interference, and of course, the polls that showed him winning magically aren't fraud or election interference. Let's pretend for a moment that this poll is. Then literally every poll ever is election interference and fraud. Because Ann Seltzer's poll did what all other polls do. And a lot of them come out a few days before the election. Now, a lot of them are periodic polls, that they come out at certain intervals, and it just so happens that they come out a few days before the election. But polls do that. It's not like people are going to look at the polls and say, oh, Kamala Harris is going to win. Might as well stay home then. Not how anything works. There are other races. There are down ballot races. There are referenda. Not election interference. And if anybody should be claiming fraud, it should be Kamala Harris, because the polls made it seem like, a lot of these polls made it seem like she had a chance, and she got wasted. So, how is this fraud? At best, Trump has no standing, because this didn't hurt him. Why? Because not only did he win the election, he freaking won Iowa. How can you win a state and then... I've heard of sore losers, but he's a sore winner. Jesus Christ, unless everybody says he's the most perfect person that ever walked the planet, he's going to find fault with them. He doesn't care about reality. He just wants everybody to kiss his ass. He wants everybody to worship him. He thinks that Kim Jong-un is... the way the North Koreans treat him like a god. That's what Trump wants to be. He wants to be treated like a god. So, anything that might show that the people might not love him unconditionally like he wants, obviously that's a problem with the way the poll was conducted, rather than maybe there happen to be people out there who aren't thrilled with you. Anyway, Seltzer, in an interview with a local PBS station last week, said she is mystified about the motivation that anybody thinks I had and would act on in such a public poll. I don't understand it, and the allegations I take very seriously. They are saying that this is election interference, which is a crime. So the idea that I intentionally set up to deliver this response when I've never done that, I have plenty of opportunities to do it. It's not my ethic. But to suggest without a single shred of evidence that I was in cahoots with somebody, that I was being paid, it's hard to pay too much attention to it, except they are accusing me of a crime. A crime which makes absolutely no sense given the result. Because it's one thing to say that Ann Seltzer gave this poll and that the election officials made it so Kamala Harris just magically won by those 3 points. That would be one thing. But he won by 13. So her poll was wrong. So I just don't understand what logic, except for the fact that Ann Seltzer's poll showed that Trump wasn't going to win Iowa. And Trump can't handle that there is somebody out there who doesn't worship him like a god, like his MAGA followers do. So that obviously is wrong, and we need to ensure that her next poll says whatever he wants it to say, which is not how polling works. And obviously there was a problem with the poll because it was wrong. That's why I generally do poll averages as opposed to looking at any one particular poll for that very reason. Polls a lot of the times are wrong. But if you take an average of the polls, well, then you saw, if you followed my videos on whenever I did polling, which wasn't a lot. I did a couple, and they had Kamala Harris losing. Now, it wasn't the shellacking that she took, but she still was losing. So, yeah. I just don't understand this motivation at all. Like I said, it's gotta be his narcissism. Because logic just doesn't explain this at all. Trump filed a suit against ABC in March, claiming he was defamed by This Week anchor George Stephanopoulos in an interview with Representative Nancy Mace, a Republican from South Carolina. Stephanopoulos said that a jury had found Trump liable for rape. In fact, in a civil case brought by writer E. Jean Carroll, Trump was found liable for sexual assault, which, like I said, so much better. I mean, how many people don't equate sexual assault and rape? I mean, granted, there is a fine line between the two. There is a difference. But most people would find it hard to separate the two. So, even though technically it was sexual assault, I don't think many people would look at that and say, oh, well, he totally made shit up. No, he really didn't, because he still was found guilty of assaulting her. It's just wasn't under the definition of rape. But it was still sexual assault. How much of a man baby do you have to be that even something like this, well, it wasn't rape, it was just sexual assault, is somehow you see that as being better. Ugh. A judge in June refused to dismiss the case, handing a victory to Trump. But he still faced the challenge of trying to prove that ABC acted with malice or reckless disregard for the truth, a high bar for proving defamation claims. Nevertheless, ABC settled the suit in an agreement signed on Friday and made public on Saturday, which so many people, lay people, lawyers, are just dumbfounded at ABC's decision to do this. I don't know, maybe they figured that Trump will leave them alone if they do this, which, I have a bridge to sell you if you think that's going to happen. You're just emboldening the asshole to keep going after you and other media because he thinks he can win. He thinks he can force people to live in his reality, which is everything revolves around him. And he's the greatest thing that's ever happened in the world. Critics of the settlement predicted that he would embolden Trump to file more lawsuits against media outlets. And wouldn't you know, As he pointed out at the press conference, he already has lawsuits pending against CBS journalist Bob Woodward and the Pulitzers. Why the Pulitzers? And while many of his past defamation and other claims have been tossed out before they get very far, including litigation against CNN, the New York Times, and the Washington Post, the fear is that the threat of dragging media outlets to court will chill critical coverage of him. Which is the freaking point. That's what he wants. He doesn't want people to say bad things about him. He doesn't want people to he wants people to unequivocally adore him. Just like in North Korea, where it is a literal crime to say anything bad against the dear leader. That is the kind of thing that he looks up to. He wants people to unequivocally adore him and never criticize him ever. Even though there's plenty to criticize. David Axelrod, the CNN political commentator and former advisor to Barack Obama, wrote on X, "Now Trump says he's suing the Des Moines Register because their poll understated his support. 60 Minutes, because of their editing of Kamala Harris's interview, the Pulitzer Committee for honoring New York Times coverage of Russian election interference. Oh, for God's sakes. Welcome to Hungary, folks. That was a reference to Viktor Orban, Hungary's authoritarian leader. That's just, yeah. Trump also said that we will take a look at TikTok, which faces being banned from U.S. app stores next month unless it is divested from its Chinese parent company. Trump tried to restrict the app in his first term, and a law to force a divestiture passed Congress overwhelmingly last year. But Trump has changed his tune on the app, saying he has a warm spot in my heart for TikTok. He credited it with helping him win the youth vote, albeit exit polls showed a majority of 18 to 29-year-old voters still favored Harris, just in much smaller margins than Democrats won in previous cycles. Yeah, well, Trump never cared about reality or facts, so. Now, that is the end of this article, but I just want to mention about TikTok. It's unclear whether he still favors keeping TikTok around. Because on the one hand, one of his donors, I think it was, is invested in TikTok. But on the other hand, he's been pretty chummy with Mark Zuckerberg lately. Zuckerberg even gave money to his inauguration fund. So, and if TikTok gets banned, Facebook is going to probably be the winner in all of this. So it depends. I guess it depends on who donates more to Trump. Who kisses his ass more, Mark Zuckerberg or this donor who also happens to be invested in TikTok? So yeah, so those of you who voted for Trump because he wouldn't ban TikTok, don't be so sure. It's still possible that he won't. It's still possible that whoever this donor is that also is invested in TikTok might continue to win him over. Or it could be Zuck could win him over. Or maybe he's just taking Zuckerberg's money and laughing all the way to the bank that Zuckerberg is a complete schmuck. Which wouldn't be wrong, but anyway. So, I believe that is all I have for this video. So like I said, that is the end of that article. Yeah. It started with Morning Joe, which has gone down in the rankings spectacularly. Their ratings have just plummeted ever since they went to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. So I wonder, now that ABC settled, I wonder what it's going to do to their ratings. Now, I'm pretty sure that Bob Iger, because Disney owns ABC, I'm pretty sure Bob Iger did this so Trump would probably leave Disney alone and, let them do their thing. Like Marvel has introduced Wiccan. It's only a matter of time before they introduce Hulkling and have that relationship play out in theaters or on Disney Plus. And he doesn't need a bunch of white nationalist dipsy doodles getting in his way. So maybe that was his reasoning, that he'd rather give him $15 million to get him to leave him alone. Problem is that that's not how Trump works. Basically, Trump is a "what have you done for me lately" type of person. Because how many people who are now back in his good graces previously weren't? Because, J.D. Vance called him Hitler, called him America's Hitler. Now he's his vice president. Not because of anything Trump did, but J.D. Vance is now kissing Trump's ass. And so Trump sees it as, okay, he's kissing my ass in a way that I like enough that I'm going to reward him for that. That's how Trump operates. So even though you gave him the money, the minute you do something to piss him off, which could be literally anything, he's going to turn on you. That's just the way he is. Because there's only one person he cares about, and that's himself. He doesn't care about anyone else. I don't think he even cares about his kids, even Ivanka. He only cared about her if he thought that he could literally have a chance with her. But except for that, yeah, there's really nobody that he cares about. I don't think he gives a shit about Melania. He certainly doesn't give a shit about Marla. I don't think he gave a shit about Ivana. It's just, he only cares about himself. He only seemingly cares about other people if they are advancing his goals. Otherwise, yeah, he doesn't care. So anyway, that is all I have for this video. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one.